Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraye. Thank you very much. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, text number 10. So here, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, he is summing up the point of all the verses he has spoken so far. And the whole point of all the verses is to love Krishna and to fully surrender to him. Vita raga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upashritaha bahava jnana tapasa puta madbhavam agata. Vita, become free from. Vita means when something is finished, it has expired, completely worn out. That's called Vita. So what is finished, expired? Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. Attachment, fear and anger. Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, Manmaya, Mam, Upashrita. To be fully in Krishna, to be conscious of nothing but Krishna, Ma Upashrita, fully taking shelter of, refuge in Krishna. Bahava Jnana Tapasa. Bahava, many people, Jnana Tapasa, who were endowed with knowledge and penance, Puta, became purified, cleansed. Matbhavam, agata, gaining this transcendental love for me. So this idea of knowing Krishna, remember the previous verse was Janma Karma Chame Divyam. So to know Krishna, his birth and activities as divine means to have love for Krishna. Knowing Krishna to be like this means to have love. Now this requires three things in this verse. One, Vita Raga, we must be free from attachment, fear and anger. That's number one. Number two, we have to be Krishna Upashrita. We have to be taking refuge in Krishna. Three, we should be purified by knowledge of Krishna. Jnana tapasa puta, by knowledge of Krishna and by austerities undertaken for Krishna. So this knowing Krishna's transcendental nature, his birth and activities, means three things: to be free from attachment, fear and anger, to be fully surrendered to Krishna, and to be purified by knowledge of Krishna and austerities done in his service. Translation: being freed from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So there's a need to explain these two words, jnana and tapasa. Again, it's like education. We box these words thinking they apply to any knowledge and any austerity, but actually that is not exactly correct. In this verse, they refer to the kind of jnana and tapasa that has been spoken of in the previous verses. Up to this is text 10. So the previous verses, they define this jnana and tapasa. And the jnana is knowledge of Krishna that is acquired by performing devotional service. Tapasa is the devotional service. So you become purified by knowledge of Krishna that you get by performing devotional service. That's the meaning here. It's not any knowledge will purify you and any penance will purify you. For example, people who work very hard for a salary do not become purified. By that, it's a penance of a time, very severe work in order to get some money, but it doesn't purify. So this is the penance one engages in order to serve Krishna. That means devotional service is not an armchair affair. There is an exertion, there is an effort, there is an activity. And that was also spoken of. Chatur Varnya Maya Srishtam. I'm sorry, I may be skipping. It's yet to come. So this is going to be explained. Okay. So the other point is that unless one is free from attachment, fear and anger of a material life, one is unable to love Krishna. Vita Raga Bhaya. Unless you're free, you cannot be man maya mam upashita. You can't think of Krishna, and you can't, because you're absorbed in attachment to material things. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is compared to darkness and light. If you're in darkness, you're not in light. So if you're attached to material things, you're unable to be attached to Krishna. The final point to note is that Raga, Bhaya, Krodha are progressively worse stages of materialism. Attachment is bad. Bhaya is a even more developed degree of material life when you become fearful. And Krodha is the most when you become angry. Now, Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he is going to divide his purport into three categories. He is going to point out the problems with Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, one by one. So first he addresses Raga, being materially affected, attached. As described above, meaning to the verse, the translation, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected, that means conditioned by Raga, to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So straight away there is a difficulty in understanding the personal nature of the Absolute Truth if you're attached to material things. Because why is that? Because you associate personality with everything material. For example, if you're attached to a woman, that means a form. So you can't think of the Absolute Truth as a form, because your experience of form is material. So it has this. It is impossible for, Prabhupada says that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge and eternally blissful. So because you become too conditioned to this idea of form being perishable, ignorant and temporary, because that's material experience. So that material experience, it conditions us. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they're informed of the personal form of the Lord. For them, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the Supreme to be impersonal. So one time, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, who are these impersonalists? Who are they? He was surprised. Prabhupada speaks so heavily, so much against the impersonalists. Who are they? Prabhupada said, it's you. So, because of course we don't consider ourselves as impersonalists. I may consider myself to be Indian, a man, a rich, poor, but not an impersonalist. But so Srila Prabhupada just explained how you become an impersonalist, how you are an impersonalist, just by being attached to material life. It conditions you. You're helpless. You're unable to help yourself. Because without consciously thinking of it, your idea of the Absolute Truth is one that is free from your experience. And your experience is of matter. So the idea of the Absolute Truth having a form is beyond your ability to understand. So now if you can't even think of the Absolute Truth as a person, how can you love Him? You see? Now it's all the difficulties arise. So now Prabhupada moves on to the problem with bhaya, or having fear. Now here Prabhupada's idea of fear and Krishna's idea is where one the idea of Krishna's personality actually frightens them. Okay. And because they're too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. Because they cannot disassociate. For example, many people, if you have noticed, their idea is to lose themselves. Have you heard this? Like just to lose themselves. Their conception of happiness is impersonal. Where you forget yourself, where you forget, so that means you want something impersonal experience. So the idea is that there is a person within this experience, then immediately you become apprehensive. That, this is material life again. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life. It is devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. So Prabhupada's dealt with having attachment, he's dealt with having fear, and now he's going to deal with the problem of having anger within spiritual life. So here you resent any suggestion of anything spiritual. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all, being embarrassed. Embarrassed means confused and frustrated by so many theories and by contradictions in various types of philosophical speculation. They become disgusted or angry and conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. So there you have it. Prabhupada's pranam mantra. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. So Nirvishesha, when you're too attached to the material life, you think spiritual life is without personality, impersonal. And Shunyavadi, if you are too engrossed in material life to the point of being angry, then you think there is nothing. After this life, there is nothing. It's zero. Shunya. Shunya means zero. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. So Srila Prabhupada doesn't mince his words, right? Very clear. So now Prabhupada summarizes the 3 points. So he goes, firstly, some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Then he says some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some disbelieve in everything. They're angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. So Vita Raga Bhaya, you have to be free from these diseases, these impediments. They are an obstruction. Now, why is it a devotee who takes up the process of Krishna consciousness in order to become a devotee is unable to succeed or finds difficult? It's because of these 3 diseases. These 3. He has attachment to material life, so that makes him uninterested in spiritual life because he still finds it interesting. So you can't be interested in going this way as well as going that way. If you're interested that way, then this becomes slackened. So then there are people that they feel that all variety is a cause of bondage. So I want no variety. So I just want to merge. And so the materialist, the monist, the impersonalist, and then the person who is thinking everything is void. That it's all meaningless. Life is meaningless. We're going to die anyway. It doesn't matter. You see? So these 3 things, they stop you from being a devotee of Krishna. So a devotee who has some hopelessness, who is fed up, he wants to, he wants all the problems to go away, or who is attached. These 3 things are impediments. So Prabhupada makes this last point, the last class of men who take to the shelter of some kind of, they take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication. So those who are drug addicted and rely on certain intoxicants to get through the day, they accept this hallucination experience as spiritual. So that's very bad condition of life, because for them it's all of it is meaningless. It doesn't matter what kind of life you live, even if it's drug induced, chemical induced. Therefore, Prabhupada says one has to get rid of all three stages of attachment to the material world: negligence of spiritual life, fear of spiritual personal identity, and conception of void that arises from frustration in life. To get free from these three stages of material concept of life, one has to. So now, those are the three problems, and here's the solution. One has to take shelter of the Lord. Now, so the point is Mam Upashrita. How does he do that? By being guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and by to follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. So that's called Jnana Tapasa Puta. This regulated discipline is your training based on knowledge and engagement in devotional activity. The last stage of devotional life is called Bhava, or transcendental love of God. So one has to do Jnana Tapasa Puta. He has to become purified to such a degree that he starts to develop love for God. He starts to have feeling for God. He not only has overcome the idea that God is impersonal, he sees him as a person, but he has such a relationship, just like you might have some respect for your country's leader. Let's say Gandhi. People had a lot of respect, to the point they called him Mahatma Gandhi. He wasn't a Mahatma, but they called him. So, but let's suppose you become personally involved with him. I don't know, you might be his father, his relative, his uncle, his cousin. Then you have some strong feelings for that person. So a general person might have respect, but a person who is intimately involved, he has strong feelings. So we have to do devotional service in such a way that we not only have respect for Krishna, but we become so involved with him that we have some feelings for him. We have some affection. That's called bhava. According to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the science of devotional service, Prabhupada then quotes the verse, Ado Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangatha Bhajana Kriya Tato Anartha Nivriti Syat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tatha Atha Saktis Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Abhyudhanchati Sadhakana Ayam Premna Pradur Bhave Bhavekrama. So now Prabhupada is delineating this jnana tapasa, the process of becoming purified by knowledge and engagement in service. So this knowledge is like a consciousness. So having consciousness of Krishna and engaging in Krishna service has 8 stages. 8 stages. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. So that's called Ado Shraddha. That there must be a desire. So that means you've left behind attachment, fear and anger to material things. You've left it behind. You freed yourself from Vitaraga. You freed yourself from that lifestyle. So now you have to have a desire for self-realization, Ado Shraddha. This will bring one to the stage, second stage, associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha. Then one becomes bhajana kriya. One becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master. So Prabhupada uses this word, elevated. Now, in other words, he's qualifying what kind of spiritual master. And it's interesting because I'll raise the question and I'll answer it. Because that presupposes there may be unelevated spiritual master. Now, and that is correct. Because if you read the Nectar of Instruction, it is mentioned that a spiritual master may be a Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari or Uttam Adhikari. So you can't say it's all one. Because a certain delineation is there, levels are there, not one level. So the point of this process of jnana tapasa puta, that's what's being described here, that one line. That purification by knowledge of Krishna and service to Krishna. The third stage involves becoming initiated by an elevated spiritual master. That means he can elevate you. If he is not elevated, he cannot elevate you. So that means we have to have a desire for self-realization. We have to associate with spiritually elevated people. But now I have to be elevated by a spiritual master. And under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. So that means he begins the process, the training. If he is left to his own devices, his own imagination, then we're not even on number 3. Although we might have Krishna Das or Krishna Devi Dasi name. It's dependent on the bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya means to do. So you have to have an occupation that engages you in bhajana, in service to Krishna, in worship of Krishna, in devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, 4th stage comes. One becomes free from all material attachment. So now there's a measure if you're engaging in devotional service to Krishna under the guidance of an elevated spiritual master, you must be becoming free from attachment. So even though you left behind the life of raga, dvesh, raga, bhaya, krodha, there is some leftover. Nobody is able to break away completely. But when one advances in service to Krishna, then whatever remnants of attachment remain, they should go away. Like for example, I might have been addicted to sports. We're in India, cricket. Yeah, this is kind of common. I might have been mad. So you've given it up because you joined the Hare Krishna temple. Yeah, no sports, no more. Okay, but the desire may remain. You're not doing it. Vita rag, you've given it up, but the desire, the remnants of it, still there. So when you engage in devotional service under the guidance of an elevated spiritual master, even the desire for cricket should not go away. So that's exemplified by Yamunacharya. He was a king who used to engage in sex life with many ladies. So he gave it up. He became a sannyasi. But because he engaged in devotional service, even the desire for it has now started to go away. That's the point. So then you reach 5th stage. One attains steadiness in self-realization. So in the beginning up to this point, because there's material attachment, sometimes the material attachments oppress you, and sometimes you feel free. So it's up and down, up and down. And then you come to a stage where there's no up and down. It's steady. So number 6 stage, one acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So this is ruchi. So it was anartha nivriti syat tato nishtha ruchis tatha. So now there's a ruchi, a taste. This is referring to, in the 2nd chapter, that verse that Niraharasya dehina rasa varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. When one gets a higher taste, one is able to give up the lower. So this is the 6th stage of jnana tapasa puta, when one becomes purified by engaging in devotional service to Krishna. So that's a very good stage. Now you see, this is how you get Madhbhava. Sometimes we dismiss these verses very quickly because it's one verse in 700. But actually this one verse is the kind of the apex of the discussion. It's not one verse among 700. In fact, this is what Krishna also refers to in the 18th chapter in the form of Sarva Dharma Prityaja. These are synonymous. Is to gain love for me is Sarva Dharma Prityaja. So this is the 6th stage, that one has a taste. He likes it. He enjoys it. All the things he used to like in material life, now his likes are all about Krishna, nothing else. So this taste leads one to the 7th, to attachment for Krishna consciousness. So he likes it, now he likes it so much, he can't live without it. That's called attached. You are very upset when you're deprived from Krishna, or Krishna consciousness, or service to Krishna. Remember, this is to do with tapasa, that means service to Krishna. So one has to have his service, otherwise he's very disturbed. Now this matures into the 8th, according to this is 9 stages here. But so the 8 stages, he matures in bhava. That means he starts to experience ecstatic symptoms. His attachment is so intense, he has bodily, his body experiences ecstasy. His body, his mind becomes, and then finally, a real love for God is called prema, 9th stage, the highest perfectional stage of life. So this is the development. So first we have the first line, Vita Rag Bhaya Krodha Man Maya Man Upashrita Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Puta Mad Bhava Agata. Just going back to the verse to see if I said it right. It seems like I said it right. Okay. So then, yeah. 7th one. I think we did say it. 7th one was so many notes. Attachment to Krishna, or Krishna consciousness. So I said the 6th was having a taste, and the taste becomes so intense you become attached to Krishna consciousness, to your service. Okay. So one interesting, I'd like to point out, this was just a reading of the verse, the purport. But one note I'd like to draw your attention is to the 2nd leading to the 3rd. Sadhu Sangha leading to Bhajana Kriya. Interestingly, sometimes we associate with devotees, but we miss this link whereby I myself become engaged in service. We have this concept of taking initiation from a spiritual master, Diksha, but we forget this essence of that Diksha is to become engaged in service. So sometimes there are people who are initiated, but they're just wondering, Prabhuji, what do you do? Oh, so that's vague. You see that like that hand movement, just vague. There's no answer. So once upon a time, a devotee meant a person who had a service, a real concrete service that defined his existence. Okay, reading on. In the prema state, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage. So, Prabhupada's emphasis on the word slow. Slow because there are 8 stages. So it's slow according to our ability to take up each stage, one after the other, successfully. Sometimes we take it up, but it's premature. In other words, you know, this is where Prabhupada, you've heard the phrase, now we have to boil the milk. You heard Srila Prabhupada has been mentioned to have said that we need to boil the milk. This boiling the milk means perhaps somebody was given initiation when he was not ready for that stage. So this means slow because there has to be readiness. Just like a mango. A mango, actually, you get a mango after slow. You have to plant the seed, it becomes a plant, it becomes a tree. The tree has to mature. The flowers it has to bear flowers. The flowers have to bear fruit. Otherwise, and the fruit has to ripen. Otherwise you don't have a mango. So the mango in this case is pure love of God. So it has to go through this process. And therefore it's slow. But of course we're flooded with too many quotations. Oh, you can become Krishna conscious instantly. Yes, but the process is slow. You can become Krishna conscious instantly, but the process is jnana tapasa puta. By the process of becoming engaged in service, by acquiring knowledge of Krishna, then you become purified. Okay, so under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations that result in void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. That's Madhbhava Magata. You can attain to the destination, Agata. You can go there, you can reach. Very nice verse actually. Now, I just want to point out there's one other thing that needed to be said. Vitaraga is another name for a sannyasi. You may not have known, but we're really talking about the real stuff here. In other words, it's a platform of a very elevated stage of life. Because when you're not Vitaraga, it's animalistic. So your animal life doesn't cease unless you come to Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. So when Prabhupada says people are cats, dogs, camels and asses, he's referring to people who have not become free from attachment, fear and anger, which puts us in that category ourselves. Something to think about. Now there's a number of references which Srila Prabhupada, I have 3 references. They're very nice. I'd like to share them with you. First one is from a lecture in Bombay in 74. And here Prabhupada equates Vitaraga with Param Drishtva, the higher taste. When you increase Raga for Krishna, then you can become Vitaraga. Param Drishtva Nivartate. That is, if you get a Rasgulla, you can give up good. That's Prabhupada's statement. If you get a Rasgulla, you can give up good. Just the sweet form of sugar cane. The next quote is from London, 1973. Bhaya, a foolish man, if he is informed, he can have a better life in the spiritual world by becoming a servant of God, Krishna. He thinks, I'm a slave to materialism. I have suffered so much. Why should I be a servant of Krishna? There is no gain for me. He thinks all service is material slavery. He cannot understand that service to Krishna is simply Ananda. So these Nirvisheshavadi impersonalists do not understand. So he's calling the materialist a Nirvisheshvadi, right? You might have thought I was cavalier when I said all this is Nirvishesh. Now you have Prabhupada's statement. So in 1966, last reference, Krodha means there are other persons who are neither impersonalists nor personalists. They are atheists, meaning they don't believe in any transcendental nature. They do not even believe in the existence of the soul. They simply concern themselves with this material body. Okay, I think the next verse is more involved. There's much more to be covered, so I can hardly embark on it when we've just come to the end. Are there any questions?